This is the Articulations lab, or the Joints lab, and this one kind of goes with the Skeletal lab, but it is a separate lab. This one is much shorter, and there's only actually a couple diagrams we need to go through together. To start off, exercise 1 is looking at examples of joints in our body. And so table A here has some generic types of joints, and then you need to give examples of more specific types of joints. So for example, the example for synarthrosis would be a suture. So go ahead and fill in the rest of the table. And then B gets even more specific. So this is where can you find these in the body. So for example, an example of a suture is a skull suture. So make sure you fill in those, but also make sure that for a lab exam, if I give you a joint in the body, that you know which categories these fall into, both the generic and then more specific down here. Our first diagram is sort of a generic synovial joint, and this is at the end in between two long bones. And so we have a long bone here and a long bone down here, and then we have the synovial joint in between them. Up here are words we can use to fill it in. So this here is pointing to this layer on the outside of our long bone, and hopefully you remember that that is the periosteum. The periosteum continues on down, and then it kind of transitions into this outer layer of the capsule here. And this is the fibrous capsule. The inner part of the capsule here, the red, is the synovial membrane. The yellow, actually in between the bones here, is the joint cavity, and the joint cavity is where the synovial fluid is found. The blue on the ends of the long bones is the articular cartilage. Second diagram is a little more complicated, but still not all that bad. So this is the knee joint. And so up here we have the femur above the knee, and then down here we have the lower leg bones, tibia over here, the larger one, and the fibula over here, which is the smaller one. So let's come on back up. This large thing here is the patella, and then we have two ligaments, one on either side of the knee, that really kind of hold everything in place here. And so one is the lateral collateral ligament, and one is the medial collateral ligament. And so hopefully you remember from the skeletal lab that the tibia is the medial bone in the lower leg, and the fibula is the lateral. And so this is the lateral side over here on the left, this is the medial side over on the right, which makes this on the right the medial collateral ligament, or the MCL, and on the left we have the lateral collateral ligament, the LCL. We then have a couple more ligaments in the very center of our knee here, and you're looking at this from the front, and so the one that's in front is the anterior part of the knee, and so this is the anterior cruciate ligament, the ACL, and then in the back is the posterior cruciate ligament, the PCL. Down here we have a couple of little cups. These are, each is a meniscus, and so sitting into these cups are the end of the femur. And so we have the lateral meniscus on the left, the medial meniscus on the right, and then the last thing here is the patellar ligament, and this is cut here. Normally it would pass all the way from the bottom all the way up and connect to the femur up here. But if that was like that, we wouldn't be able to see the ACL and the PCL in the middle here, and so they've cut it. Obviously you don't have x-rays and a light box to look at these at home, But you can go online, look at x-rays, find x-rays of normal joints, look at x-rays of abnormal joints, broken joints, just see if you can spot the difference. You're not going to see these on the lab exam. This is kind of if you're interested, you might want to take a chance and look at that. Exercise 3 is looking at the different motions that these joints are able to go through. So we've gone through most, if not all of these in the lecture portion of the class. But here we need to define what it means to undergo this movement. So for example, flexion has a definition of decreasing a joint angle. And an example of how you use that in your body is when you flex your bicep. When you flex your bicep, the angle of your elbow is decreasing. And so that is flexion. Make sure you fill that entire table out. And then once you've done that, you can answer these questions down here. These make you think about when you do everyday activities, what kind of movements are you having to do with your joints? And so some of these, they tell you where to focus on, like legs and arms. But think about all of the joints in your legs, from the hip to the knee, to the ankle, to the toes, and everything like that. What movements have to happen when you climb stairs? And remember, climbing stairs involves not only straightening your leg, but also flexing your leg to go up to the next step. So go ahead and fill these out. When you're finished, make sure you turn it in, and then you can move on to our last lab for the semester, the muscle lab.